This is Chapter 6 from Book 1 of the Mountain Warriors series, Outcast. Chapter 6. I was surprised at the great leeway and respect that Tommy's rank had earned him. The fierce, somber border guards followed his orders with as much zeal as they would bash in a lawbreaker's head. The chills it brought felt like ice water had been poured down the inside of my spinal column as I pondered the power that he wielded. For years, I still saw him as grade school Tommy, the class clown, or rather the instigator who dared me to be the class clown. He stopped at a headquarters building near the border. Immediately after stopping, a big burly, bullet-headed border guard sprinted straight at the SUV. I had never seen a man so tall and so wide who moved so quickly and fluidly. There was no sign of body fat on his solid body. With the determination on his face and the speed of his sprint directed at our vehicle, I thought he was going to kill us. He had a black military submachine gun on his back and a handgun holstered at his hip. I cringed as he opened my front passenger door and said to Tommy, "Good morning, sir." "Drop the formality, Don. He's cool," said Tommy. Then he said to me, "Eric, Don will be something of your guardian angel." "You got it, Tom." Don looked at me and ignored my outstretched hand. "Sit in the back, cool." I just looked at him blankly for a moment. Don's brow seemed to darken like a storm cloud rising. He was not used to being ignored. Before he could explode in a verbal torrent, I said, "Oh, no problem, sir." I got out of the front seat and moved to the back. Don scared the hell out of me. I secretly wondered if he was brought along in case I got cold feet. We drove off with Tommy and Don talking like old buddies. They also talked as if I wasn't there. I kept quiet. My hangover was starting to go away, but I was a bit unnerved with the realization of just how powerful Tommy was. And Don frankly frightened me more than a horde of zombies. I had never met someone who I was sure had killed another man. But somehow, I just knew that Don was a killer. He had a presence that was calm and cold on the exterior, but I felt there was a neutron bomb about to detonate just under his skin. The fire in his eyes sank deeply in his impassive face, which made a bigger impression on me than anything else he said or how he said it. One snippet of Tommy's and Don's conversation that I remember, and that I should have taken note of, was when Don said, "Hey, did you hear they may restart the old National Football League? I really think if things had been different, I could have gone pro." Tommy nodded and said, "You definitely have the talent. However, what we have planned will be much bigger. Much, much bigger." "You got that right," Don agreed in a deep growling voice that sounded relatively friendly. We cruised along some meandering roads, as gravelly as Don's grunts, affirmations, and expletives, until we arrived at a path with just enough room for one vehicle to traverse. It had freshly laid, crushed white rock that paralleled the fence of the border. The fence and the road did not seek out convenience in the steep lay of the mountainous land, but rather followed a barrier drawn by a bureaucrat. I was no engineer, but I could see many instances where it would have been easier to lay both the fence and the road along a shallower grade. I could tell that the road suffered heavily from erosion, and regular new graveling was needed. I stared with awe at the barrier. I had never contemplated just how high a 20-foot-high fence was. It had multiple rolls of razor wire that were laced together and covered from top to bottom on each side. Warning signs of high voltage, infectious monsters, and immediate execution and incineration from border guards were posted evenly and at a distance so that you could always see the warning. We bumped along the winding gravelly road for a while, and I lost track of time. My nausea from the hangover was gone, but the sick feeling in my belly was replaced with the butterflies. We passed a small crowd of 6 zombies lingering on the other side of the border fence. I felt a chill as I realized what they were. From a distance, I thought they were regular people, but their gray, decaying flesh gave it away. They looked out between the fence links with dulled eyes, like a goldfish stares out of a fishbowl. For a moment, it was a letdown. I was expecting something fierce, deadly. Then the movement of our vehicle caught their attention, and I could see their mouths open in savage screams. Their eyes seemed to glow with supernatural fury. They then launched themselves at the electrified barbed wire, and with a shock, 3 hit first and dropped to the ground. Although they had been electrocuted in front of the remaining 3, the others still rushed forward and suffered the same fate. "Are they dead?" I asked. "No," Don answered. "Those dumbasses will get back up shortly. I think they actually get high off the electric juice." He turned around and looked me square in the face and warned, "Don't you try to get a rush off that electricity. That will kill you in less than a heartbeat," he added with a snap of his fingers for emphasis. I nodded at the unnecessary admonition and looked out the window. We drove in silence. I disliked the way he talked down to me. "Stop the truck," Don ordered his boss. Tommy stomped on the brakes, almost giving me whiplash as we skidded on the gravel. Don opened the door and leapt out before the SUV came to a complete stop and announced, "We're here. Get out." He snapped at me like a drill instructor orders a raw recruit. Tommy popped the back hatch for the trunk of the SUV from his back seat. With no effort, Don pulled out a backpack that seemed like it was as big and as heavy as me. He tossed it right into my chest and I caught it. A smirk flashed and instantly disappeared on Don's face as the weight almost pushed me to the ground. "Quit fooling around and put that pack on," he commanded. Under the heavy load, I followed Don towards the fence. He bulldozed through a thicket of blackberry thorns like it wasn't there. I watched the thorns stick in his black and gray camouflage uniform. I didn't know if he was too mean to feel anything, if he didn't care, or if it was some tough guy act. I followed, but stopped at the briars. "Hurry up," Don ordered. I looked to Tommy, who just nodded from the SUV, too intimidated to get out of his vehicle this close to the border. I was expecting to see my friend to see me off, but I didn't even get a handshake. Don obviously ran the show from this point on. I swore and followed, cursing the stickers that bit me. "Quiet," Don yelled louder than my cursing. "Your big mouth will give away our position." I quit cursing the briars aloud and instead cursed Don in my head. I plunged through, with my eyes mostly closed, and felt Don grab me by the throat and shake me. "Stop, you idiot," he hissed as he pointed at the sign that warned of getting shot and that there were 10,000 volts racing through the fence inches from us. He led the way, still holding on to my lapel. We were now behind a rock formation where a boulder the size of a large car balanced precariously on a smaller stone. Don let go of me and kicked away some sticks and leaves on the ground to expose a small opening under the fence. "Here's a steel pipe. It's wide enough to go through. Make sure you cover it back up when you merge on the other side, okay? I'll be watching you from here," Don instructed. "Don't worry, sir," I said. He grabbed me by the throat and pointed in my face. Despite the violence, he spoke in a very calm voice that was even more menacing. "Don't tell me not to worry. When you tell me not to worry, it tells me that you aren't concerned, and that means you'll mess this up." "Okay, I'll worry," I said in all seriousness. I didn't want to piss him off. I couldn't think because it seemed like everything I said and did in his presence was wrong. He cuffed me across the head. "I don't want you to worry about it. Worry will cause you to screw up. I want you to focus. Got it? Focus," he said as he smacked the top of my head like my grandfather used to smack his ancient TV when the reception was off. Okay, I got it." And then I quickly added, "Sir?" I will be back in 2 weeks for you. Don't come back late or early. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." I wasn't used to addressing someone as sir, but I did not want to piss off Don. "Then get moving," he commanded as he pointed at the pipe. I bent down and crawled into the hole. It was a tight squeeze, but I came to a complete stop with just my head in there. I was stuck because of the large backpack on my back. As I backed up to take off the heavy backpack, Don yelled at me, "You can't fit in there with the pack on, you idiot." I backed up and pulled the pack off, and he tied it to a rope. He instructed, "Drag it through when you get on the other side." I nodded and plunged inside. Spider webs greeted me across the face. I spat and backed up as Don's boot kicked me hard in the butt. The pain of the bruise would last a week, but in that time I would acquire far worse injuries. "Move," he ordered. I continued on through the horrid length of the pipe. I hated spiders and spider webs with a passion, but I hated Don even more. It was a long crawl, maybe 30 meters, but with no lights at the end of the tunnel, I suffered claustrophobia. I pushed aside a stone and some brush that concealed the opposite end, and thanked God for the sunlight that streamed into my eyes. Pushing my way through, I finally scrambled out of the steel cave and pulled my pack through by the rope. I covered the hole under Don's watchful eyes from the other side of the fence. When I was done, I loaded my pack on my back. Although I looked the other way, I could feel his eyes upon me. I looked and could see the SUV through the leafless winter trees, but not the driver's seat where my friend, Tommy, sat. He wouldn't even get out to wave goodbye to me, I thought miserably. This hurt, but I realized that my hands were shaking. The weight of the job ahead of me finally hit. I had to find and befriend the survivors, who were likely suspicious of outsiders. I also must avoid zombies, wild animals, and bandits. I was also feeling a second wind of my hangover returning as I brushed the nasty spider webs off my face and clothes. I fought against a dry heave. "Did you cover the hole well enough like I told you?" Don asked in a growling voice. Without thinking, I gave Don the finger. He kept glaring at me with the same malevolence as before. After looking at his unblinking features for a few seconds, I lost the stare down. I knew that I would face hell in 2 weeks when I came back. However, 2 weeks felt like an eternity. I turned to the mountain ahead.